Now we rule.
Boy howdy, that's it then, huh? Final episode of the first season of Alien Earth is bound to be divisive, so let's just dig into why that is. As always, we open up with that kick-ass title sequence, which cuts to the beach, where we see Arthur having washed up on shore, not unlike that doll head from episode 4. This cuts to Dame Sylvia placing flowers on the graves of the children, while the Xeno stalks her from the nearby jungle. She's saved by Rashidi, Siberian, and whoever these two are. Meanwhile, across the island, the Xeno is causing mass havoc and just killing the heck out of everyone it can find. It's also implied that the non-essential personnel who have been evacuated were also killed by the Xeno, who's just having himself a good old time. Anyway, through some helpful voiceover by Adam Ines, we learn just how screwed everyone is. The island is completely cut off from the outside world thanks to sabotage from Morrow and Weyland-Yutani, and while there are patrols out searching for the Xeno, well, they aren't having much luck. The Lost Boys have been locked up in a holding cell, while in another, Morrow and Hermit are also being held. There's a brief moment where it seems like the hybrids aren't going to get along, that this experience will pull them apart even further, but that eventually turns out to not be the case. Curly has some words about being the favorite, but that thought is eventually alleviated by Boy Cavalier. Before that can happen though, Wendy has an idea. She uses her technopathy whatever skills to take down the security feeds and control various interfaces.
No.
Which leads to the kids pranking Rashidi's team and punishing Dame Sylvia by essentially haunting her with Wendy and Nib's pre-transition interviews. It's in this scene that we get yet another quality split diopter shot, by the way. We also see some flashbacks of Joe stuck in the middle of his job as security services, unable to make it to Marcy, whom we see writing him a letter while in bed at the hospital. This leads to Wendy unlocking Joe and Morrow's cell, an opportunity which Morrow isn't quick to question.
You wouldn't have a cigar, would you? A nice cohiba?
Shut up.
Yeah, you're right, but I gotta pee and this asshole won't unzip me.
Joe goes to find Wendy while Morrow heads to the lab to sneak up on Kirsch. We get this great shot, by the way, following Kirsch with the guards in the background, only for them to be brutally taken out by Morrow in the few seconds that the camera follows Kirsch away from the window. This is similar to another shot just a little later when Nib sneaks into Dame Sylvia's room. Anyway, Kirsch and Morrow finally get their big fight, and Morrow winds up breaking Kirsch's back, before Kirsch chokes out Morrow. In the midst of this tussle, we get a round from Kirsch's gun inadvertently hitting the enclosure for the D Plumbacare, which is immediately all set to escape. Wendy calls on the Xenomorph to return to the Neverland facility through the waste pipe it originally used to escape. Remember, her powers are telepathic, so even though she's using her weird Xeno voice in the cell, the alien can still hear her. While it's on its way, Boy Cavalier drops by the hybrid cell, where he tells the story of how he built a synth as a 6-year-old, which in turn murdered his drunkard father. It's implied in this scene, and eventually confirmed, that this synth was Adam Ines, but we'll get to that in just a moment. In the meantime, the hybrids take control. Nibs kills the shit out of Boy K's one guard, which shouldn't be surprising given the level of security that we've seen on the island thus far, and Boy runs off while the hybrids fan out to bring in the remaining adults.
Curly, you get the soldiers.
Jane. My name's Jane.
Meanwhile, Adam Ines takes Joe to Boy's office where the T-Oculus is waiting. It attacks Joe, but he manages to fight it off just long enough for Wendy to show up and kick its little tentacled ass. I love these point of view shots from Joe's perspective, by the way. While that's happening, the kids round up the adults, and the Xeno enters the building and absolutely decimates the soldiers that discover it. This might be a good time to bring up the invulnerability of this Xenomorph. Sucker straight up got shot in the head in the opening with Dame Sylvia, and it makes me wonder what makes this Xeno so special compared to the others. As we see in Aliens and Alien Romulus, amongst others, a little firepower goes a long way in taking down one of these creatures. Typically, there's the issue of the acid blood, of course, which has a nasty habit of eating through the hulls of ships, but that isn't as much of an issue in this environment. This presents a bit of a weakness to Alien Earth, in that in order to maintain its narrative, the Xenomorph has been made seriously OP. That's a problem, and one that I hope to see fixed if and when we get a Season 2. Anywho, Back in Boy's office, Adam Ines reveals himself to be the synth previously mentioned by Boy and goes to fight Wendy, only for a new power to be revealed.
No!
Not only can Wendy control the computer systems around her, she's also able to control synths. This is a pretty big reveal and could prove problematic for the incoming Weyland-Yutani soldiers, especially if a chunk of them are synthetic, something that's certainly plausible. Joe and Wendy wind up having a small argument, wherein Wendy explains that she likes the aliens because they're honest. She also explains that she doesn't really know what or who she is, showing that her character arc is far from complete. I love this line, by the way.
Don't say complicated. That is what powerless people say to make doing nothing okay.
That's a pretty strong statement, and one I would have liked to see explored more in the series. Boy, meanwhile, is skipping around the facility en route to the airship that he believes will take him to safety. Unfortunately for him, Wendy has sent the xenomorph to head him off. It kills a bunch of soldiers, Boy K pisses himself, and Joe takes a smattering of revenge. Then in the lab, the 4 soldiers from earlier take a gander around, and whoopsie doodle, there goes Siberian. Rip rip. Then Jane, subdues the only remaining living soldier, Rashidi, using the classic concussion method. Oh, and yes, I did catch that Aliens reference, by the way.
Stay frosty.
Back to the beach, the Teoculus finds itself a host amongst our cast of characters at long last, and it's Arthur. So, welcome back, Arthur. See you next season, because that's the last we're seeing of you this episode. Speaking of next season, there's also the matter of the Weyland-Yutani forces who have made it to the island and are mere minutes away from arriving at Neverland. But screw that noise, we've got a Wendy monologue to listen to.
You think you're a good person who did good things. All you did is put 6 children in the ground.
So yeah, in our final scene, Wendy and her fellow Lost Boys surveil their new prisoners, aka all of the living adults, including Kirsch, Morrow, Boy, Dame, and Adam. No sign of Rashidi, but he might be hiding in there somewhere. Wendy points out that Boy was never really Peter Pan, but rather an angry little man, and even chastises Dame Sylvia. From there, Curly asks what they're going to do next, which Wendy says,
"Now we rule,"
as Pearl Jam's Animal plays over the credits. So we end the show much like we began, with dangerous animals locked in a cage, the Scorpion replaced with a trillionaire, his lackeys, and a Captain Hook allegory for good measure. Of course, there's still the matter of Weyland-Yutani's impending invasion. There's no way Wendy is letting them take her precious xenomorphs, so what exactly will happen? Will she use her technokinetic abilities to take them down all by her lonesome? Will the Lost Boys entrap them in Neverland? Or will they perhaps try and make a deal with Yutani? It's hard to say what Noah Hawley and his team have planned. Let me know in the comments what you thought of this episode. For me, it was definitely a little disappointing, primarily because it really does feel like a penultimate episode rather than a finale. It also lacks a lot of the punch that the first half of the season provided, and that's something that really the whole island portion of the plot can be accused of. It really feels like the story took a bit of a dive once that initial Xeno from the Maginot was killed by Wendy, and minus the flashback episode, it never feels like it really recovered. That said, I did enjoy myself, and even this episode worked for me overall. I just wish it ended with a little more finality, as there's no guarantee, at least at the time of this video, that we'll be getting a second season. I like the hybrids, I like the world building, and I like the other characters, especially Kirsch, Boy, and Morrow, so it's a foregone conclusion that I desperately want another season with all of those things, and to see them given their proper conclusions. As it is, this was a good season of television, stymied by some unfortunate creative decisions. With that said, I'll be sure to give the whole thing another chance to see if maybe this is all just recency bias on my part. Perhaps taken as a binge watch, it'll all come together more succinctly. In the meantime though, please, get down in those comments, give me some juicy opinions, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Bye now.